Investor Intelligence provides general information only. You should consider seeking independent advice to see how this information relates to your unique circumstances. Please refer to the terms and conditions available at investorintelligence.com.au for more.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Investor Intelligence, brought to you by the team at the Property Mentors. It's your weekly podcast for all things investment and hosted by me, Phoebe Sikowski-Wallace. Guys, welcome to episode 70 of Investor Intelligence, and thank you so much for tuning in to our last episode of full-on-feb. Today I've got back with me a very special guest who I've been so excited to invite back on the show. Her name is Helen Mac. Helen is a business coach who helps create the best possible results for small business owners, and over her very impressive career, Helen has coached and trained thousands of people to improve results in not only their businesses but also their lives. You will also recognise her from episode 61, in which we were talking all things setting your business up for success. Welcome back, Helen.
It's lovely to be here. Whenever you talk about that, I always feel a bit tired.
What, your long list of achievements?
My long list of achievements, yes.
How's your 2023 been so far?
Yeah, it's been great. I'm in restart mode in a new community, so I'm having a really fabulous time meeting a whole bunch of new small business owners, from startups through to really experienced, long-term people. I'm having a ball meeting all these new business owners. It's fantastic.
Oh, that's fantastic. They're very lucky to have you.
Oh, thank you.
So last time you were a guest on the podcast, we discussed things, all things starting out in new business and starting out as a new business owner. We also touched on why a lot of small businesses or new businesses fail in the first 2 years, and why, from a sort of investor's point of view, things like getting a loan and, from banks and lenders, if someone is a small business owner who's also an investor, that can be tricky to navigate. And listeners, if you haven't already, I highly recommend you listen to that episode because it is jam-packed with so much helpful information and has received some really, really great feedback. But Helen, I thought this time we would talk a little bit more sort of long-term about sustaining your business success and the key attitudes, for creating that success, essentially. So more generally speaking, to start off with, what are some of the key attitudes of successful business owners? Like, what are they doing differently?
I think one of the first ones actually leads on beautifully from our conversation last time, Phoebe, and that is that successful business owners recognise that it's never going to be an overnight success. Mm-hmm. You talk to people the superpreneurs that we know in the world, the Richard Bransons and Greg Norman and all kinds of people from all kinds of environments, and all of them say, I was never an overnight success. It kind of looks like I went from nothing to boom, but the reality is that sustainable success is a journey, and some days it's one heavy foot in front of the other. Yeah. And some days you're on a skateboard and it's all going really well. But the most important attitude is actually consistency of doing the things that create long-term business success. And that's making sure that you are consistently looking after your customers, that you are consistently addressing issues in your business, that you are consistently paying your bills and invoicing. I remember talking years ago to a guy who was so far behind in his invoicing that he used to do restumping of houses. He was so far behind in his invoicing that some of the houses had changed hands before he sent an invoice.
Oh, no.
Now, that's not sustainable. To my defence, I wasn't his business coach.
Okay.
But I remember talking to him and going, what? You what? He would do some invoices, but he didn't have a consistent way that every Friday morning, and I said to him, you need to get a bookkeeper. You need to have someone else. This is clearly not something and we talked about this last time, right? This is not something you're good at or you like doing. Pay someone to do it.
Yeah,
then you can get the money.
Yeah.
So be consistent in your systems, in your processes, and in the treatment of the important people in your business. and in your world. Long-term sustainable business is also about looking after your other team members if you've got them, your family, your friends. Life is a whole, and if we just are so focused on our business that all the other parts of our life fall over, we're in trouble.
Yeah.
So that's a key piece, is consistency, recognizing that it's not going to happen overnight, but if you are consistent in your application of step-by-step approaches, it will happen.
Yeah, it's exactly the same as property investing. Things do not happen overnight. You have to be patient. You have to be consistent. And yeah.
You have to take the baby steps at the start that lead to the bigger steps. You can't just suddenly leap in. Same, as you say, same in property investment. You can't go from zero to hero overnight. There are some steps along the way.
No. So are there some kind of common milestones that some businesses struggle with? So, the first example that comes to my head is, hiring new employees and growing the team. But are there those common milestones where engaging a business coach can really help to make it through those milestones smoothly?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. One of the key ones is, Michael Gerber talks about the entrepreneurial seizure, where the individual goes, right, I'm going to go out and start a business. And then they start a business and they're working during the day, all day, doing the business things. And then at night, they're doing all the back end stuff that they kind of weren't aware of when they were working for someone else. Because in most businesses, the people who are out there either building the house or, fixing the plumbing or writing the financial plan, regardless of what kind of business they're in, they may not be aware of all the stuff that the boss is doing behind the scenes. And so then they start working, about 27 hours a day, every day, exhausting themselves and realizing that their income's not as good as it was when they were working for someone else. And there's this point at which they go, I can't do it all. Then they make one of the classic mistakes, which is they then try to recruit either their spouse or a friend to do the admin. Right. And if the spouse or friend is sensible, they go, no, I'm fine, thanks, I'm doing this other thing. Then they have to decide who they're going to hire and how they're going to do it. And a lot of small business owners at this point make one of two mistakes. The first one is they go, I'll just go and hire another one of me, and that'll make everything okay. But the reality is that having stepped into that entrepreneurial space, you are slightly different to the average bear. It's a bit like the people who take the step into property investment space. They're not the average bear. That takes a certain mental attitude and a certain confidence and a whole bunch of other stuff to go, right, I'm going to be a property investor as opposed to simply buying my own home. It's the same with business. So that first step. And so a business coach, whether it's me or anyone, can be that slight step away saying, this is the kind of jobs you need done, and this is the sort of person that might be able to do that. And the great news these days is you don't have to hire a full-time anything as your first addition to your team. They might be part-time, they might be casual, they might be contract, they might be virtual. There's so many different opportunities, and I love brainstorming with my clients about what are some ways we can creatively do that. A little gem suggestion is that if you're looking for admin staff and you don't need absolutely full-time, there are a whole bunch of parents, often mums, who want to work between kid drop-off to kid pickup. They're often highly skilled. They don't want to work full-time 9 to 5 or 8 to 6 Monday to Friday. They would love to do some admin in the middle of the day, ideally most days at home. Huge opportunity for the entrepreneurial person who wants to duplicate or get their admin sorted, not by them. And there are lots of other options that I'm really happy to talk to any of your listeners too. So that's one point. The first time when you need to stop trying to do it all yourself. And then the second time is when the business is going well and the business owner decides that it's time for them to step out of the day-to-day running of the business and step up into really the business development next stage kind of piece. And if they don't do that well, that can all make everything fall apart because they may not have put in place super clear systems and expectations for their people of how they should behave when they're not kind of looking over their shoulder all the time. And so that's another point at which an external business advisor type person, a coach, mentor, whatever, can say, okay, let's make sure that we've got the systems in place, that your expectations have been clearly articulated to your team, and that you have mechanisms for bringing them back on track if they stray. So those are the two big times when it's really useful to have some external input.
Yeah, again, like that word external input, I think that's always the most important part because, again, you can be so easily, blinded to so many things that go on behind. You kind of need that external person to come in and be like the fresh pair of eyes, basically. Yeah.
And someone who's just one step away from being right in the middle of it. A slightly cheeky line that I remember from many moons ago is, if you're up to your ass in alligators, it's very hard to remember that your goal was to drain the swamp.
Oh my God, I love that. That is so funny. Cheeky.
So if you're up to your ass in alligators, find someone else to remind you and give you some hints on how to drain the swamp.
Oh my God, I love that. That's so funny. So Helen, as a business coach working with businesses that are a little bit more established, what do you normally go through with them? Like, do you have a particular process that you stick to?
The answer is both, yes and no. So yes, I have a series of processes, but one of the things that I pride myself on is that I believe that every business is different, that every business owner is different. So I don't have a cookie cutter approach. I work with the business owner to decide. The first pass is to find out where they are now, and then where do they want to be and what's the gap. And so there are some coaching systems around that say that everyone has to go through step 1, step 2, step 3. I want to meet the business owner where they are and help them identify two things. What did they dream of when they started the business? Where are they now? What's the gap? And how do we fix that? And then regardless of where they are in their business, the three steps that I get them to look at is, the first is, if they're working with me, then it's likely that they've come to a point where something feels impossible. It's like, it's not possible for me to recruit someone who'll stay, or it's not possible for me to have a team member who will do what I say, or it's not possible for me to get enough clients, or whatever. So they've got this thing going on in their head. So the first step is to identify what those are. And my phrase is, eliminate not possible from your mental conversation, and also from the words you say. Because as soon as we say that's not possible, either out loud or inside our heads, our brain literally switches off. It switches off all of its processing and goes, oh, okay, if you believe it's not possible, I'm going to stop looking. Our brain agrees with us, sadly, and goes, okay, well, if it's not possible, then let's not try it. And it sort of, so we get in our own way in that regard. Once we've got rid of that negative picture and we've got a brighter picture of where we are now and where we want to go and what the gap is, then the second question is, what's possible? So you ask, what's possible? First is eliminate not possible. Second step is ask, what's possible? Now, the what's possible is about brainstorming options. Now, whether that's the example that I gave you of brainstorming options for how do I get my admin done? And because I've been doing this for a very, very long time, I've got lots of ideas because I've worked in a variety of industries in all kinds of circumstances. So we kind of go, okay, how could we do that? Okay, how else could we do that? How else could we do that? How else? So we're getting as many ideas as possible to create as big a list of options as possible. That's the ask what's possible. And regardless, how do I get more clients? How do I write my social media how do I get active on social media when I'm working all the hours God sends? Like, whatever the issue, whatever the first major big hairy issue is, what's possible? How have other people done it? If it's been solved by someone, it can be solved by the people listening. If it's been done once, it can be done again.
Sure.
So that's step 2. Eliminate not possible, ask what's possible. And then the third is the action step, which is target best possible. And that's when we go into an analysis of what's the time constraints, what resources are available, what is their current experience, who else can we tap into, what's the budget, all those sort of elements. And then on the basis of that, we eliminate a variety of options, we target the best possible option, then we set out an action plan. And the beauty of having someone like me or any other business coach by your side is that we can keep you from distracting yourself and wandering off into the bushes and go, hang on a minute, I thought we were aiming in this direction. Now, my approach is, if the business owner has decided that that's not the direction, that actually we were out by 5 degrees, that's fine, let's just adjust. But I help them stay accountable to themselves by reminding them of the outcome that they're working towards.
Yeah, I love that so much because it almost takes out that sort of what if sense. And as much as dreaming big is great, maybe that those big dreams aren't right for now. So kind of eliminating those not possibles currently and aiming for something that is possible really takes a lot of the pressure off too, I'm sure.
It really does. And it helps you prioritize. It helps you eliminate distractions. It helps you work out what's really important right now. What does my business need right now? What do I as a business owner need right now? And again, same with property investment. In my property investment journey, what's the best thing that I can do right now?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a baby step, sometimes it's a big step.
Yep.
And having advisors like you guys on board, you go, yeah, what you're suggesting is probably a bit big for now. We know we can achieve this, so let's go after that.
Yeah, absolutely. So does best possible in, air quotes there, does that change quite dramatically from business to business? Like, for example, is one business's best possible a revenue target, whereas another's might be a growth target, and others might be specific to a project?
You absolutely nailed it. That's exactly right. And that's why I believe that this approach needs to be completely customised for the business.
Right.
So I don't those three examples that you gave are great. A project, a revenue target, a growth target. Some businesses it's about growth. Some business it's about consolidation. I had one client whose goal was to remove himself from the day-to-day operations. He was quite fairly happy with the way the business was running. It was turning over. It was nice and consistent, but he was too in the business. He was having to kind of put out fires and rescue people. What he really wanted to do was focus on a project that would help the business long term, but required him to kind of get some headspace and a chance to breathe and think through and apply some time to this project. And every time he thought he got to that point, someone would go, I've got a problem. So that's where I stepped in and helped manage that so that he could step up and take the business into the next level. So, yeah, absolutely. Best possible for a micro business might simply be stabilising income. Going back to our last podcast, stabilising turnover and income enough to be able to apply for a business loan, for a loan to be able to invest in, buy a property investment. That's a great goal.
Yeah.
If that's where your business is at. Global domination is probably not a good goal for that business.
That's right.
But, so it's absolutely, and it needs to be customised.
Yeah. Well, that's fantastic that you're able to at least help people with all kinds of best possibles. Yeah. So many small businesses, they usually start with only a few people at most, hence, small. Is your 3-step process something that you work on with the whole business, or is it just the owner? Is it a mix of both?
Yeah, all of the above. So if it's a micro business, then it will be just the business owner because they're the only one in the business.
Right.
For a bigger, but then as they grow their business with perhaps some part-time virtual contract, full-time staff, then I may still continue just to work with the business owner. And in that focus, if we're talking to a business, if I'm working with a business owner who maybe has, 2 to 5 or 6 staff, then part of my job is to help them be the best manager of people that they can be. How can they be the best possible manager of people? Because a lot of small business owners haven't had that experience. They know how to do the doing. They know how to do the business. They know how to make the handbag or fix the tap, or they know that, but they don't know how to coach someone else to do that well. So sometimes that's my focus. Or the third piece is like the one that I was talking about before, where the business owner knew how to run the business. He was doing a really good job of that. He didn't have a great skill in helping his team become more productive and effective in themselves. He expected them to do that by themselves, which I think is unrealistic for most people. They need what I would call an internal coach, the manager or me, to support those people in how, what are the things that they're doing that are making them less effective, whether it's personal productivity, whether it's not having effective conversations with their team, with the people that they that report to them. So it depends on the business. And I think that's another important thing from a small business owner is have a conversation with someone who can help you understand where you're at now and what would be the best support you can get to take you to the next step. And that might be a step down. I remember one client where it was really about making their business simpler. They were happy with the income. They kept complicating it such that they weren't able to get out to finish days at 3:00 to be able to go to the soccer game or the ballet concert or the whatever, because they'd made the business so complex and heavy, and they were kind of dragging it behind them like some kind of heavy, horrible burden, which is not a good look.
No.
The business should, I often say I work with business owners who want to, who feel like their business is running them and they want to get back to running the business. The business should deliver to the business owner what the business owner needs, not have the business owner working so hard that everyone else in the business, including the customers and any team members, they're all doing great. The business owner's going home at the end of the day collapsing in a huddled heap and sort of whimpering quietly because they're so tired. That's not a good outcome.
No. Well, that's great that, the team is sometimes a part of it, because I guess that would really help foster a better team culture if all the members of the business are a part of that process, even though we've kind of been talking about, small business owners. But that's great that you adjust to whatever the business needs as far as that. Yeah. So to me, all of this sounds like any business owner would really benefit from undertaking this kind of process, especially a few years into being established, once they've sort of gotten over that hurdle of...
It's that tipping point where you go, okay, I've got this far, now what do I do?
Yeah, and like they've passed that stage of, businesses that fail in their first couple of years. How big of a task is this? Like, what is the work you do with these businesses sustained over a matter of weeks, months, years? What does that look like?
So I believe that I work with people initially on a 90-day process because it's hard to get any momentum or major results in less than 90 days. But 90 days is a really good energetic piece to tip a business into the next bit. You can make major changes in 90 days if the business owner is committed to taking the actions in the target best possible space. So 90-day process, and then at the end of the 90 days, the business owner and I have a conversation. And we say, okay, so we've got this far. We identified the gap at the start. We got this far. Do you feel like you can continue by yourself? And sometimes they go, yep, I've got all the bits. I'm really great. And I go, okay, let's just check in a month or so, just have a conversation, see how you're tracking. But, go, great, my number. Some of them go, that was so good, let's do that again. So sometimes it's 2 lots of 90 days. But I find that generally most businesses, after 3 lots of 3 months effectively, have got themselves to the next level in their business. So the business has either gone up, it's consolidated, it's made that shift that it needs, whatever. And really at that point, I want to ease myself out of the business so that the owner can take it to the next step. I really don't, I'm not a big fan of long-term contracts. I don't believe that the businesses need a coach in them for a long, long time, unless that coach has become kind of part of the business, in which case it's now a different role. But 90 days or 6 or 9 months, in my mind, is enough to make a shift in the business, which is what I'm passionate about. And then what I love to do is, it's like, fly, little bird, go and do these things, implement, consolidate, absolutely nail these changes. And then when they're all settled and you want to do the next step up, come back and we'll do another 90-day process or 180-day process, a 6-month process. And then you'll be ready to do the next bit.
Yeah, I think 90 days makes complete sense. And, I mean, do you think it's a little bit of if they had to keep going after that third lot of 90 days, do you think that might be a bit of a sign that something's still not quite working, even if you have made a lot of progress?
I think it's a sign that there's something. If after 3 lots, so effectively 9 months, I mean, you can make a baby in 9 months. So it's a bit like if after 9 months there's still something missing, then. And it would surprise me that they weren't feeling like they could be on their feet and moving in the direction that we had worked on and agreed. I would be thinking that by then I would be introducing them to other expert support people, whether that was a marketing, and this often happens along the way. One of the things I often say to my clients is, I've been doing this for a very long time, so I have a lot of confidence that I know the answers to most of your questions. And I'm also 100% confident that if I don't know the answer, I know someone who does.
Yeah.
So I don't want to, so it might be they do 90 days with me and then they go and do a month with a marketing person, and they get that sorted. Then they come back for another 30 days with me, and then they go off and talk to a social media person or a blah, blah, So I love the fact that clever coaches of all kinds of specialties surround themselves with other experts.
That's fascinating, because like a lot of people have like a mentor, like they might have a business mentor or something, and they're kind of long-term, but they're not in the sense where they're working 90 days straight with them. And but that's a really fascinating way to look at it. You know, the difference between having, say, like a business mentor, but then having a business coach for a period of time. I think that's really interesting. Yeah. So Helen, to wrap up, do you have any final takeaway or piece of advice for a business owner who is potentially thinking of engaging a business coach?
Well, my first piece of advice around engaging a business coach is have a conversation with them first. Not all business coaches fit all people. It's a bit like a suit or whatever. So make sure you have a conversation with them first, and in that conversation, it should be about, what are your goals as the business owner? What are your goals? And so if I have a conversation with someone who has goals and I go, I can't, that's not my expertise, I will introduce them to the accountant or the financial planner or the property property investment guru or the marketer. Because make sure that you're with the person who has the expertise and the track record. Sadly, there are a lot of coaches at the moment out there they've done the certification, they've never owned a business, they've never had staff, they're operating from a theoretical perspective. So you talked about coaching and mentoring just before, Phoebe, and I agree with you that a mentor can be around longer. For me, a coach, so if I did enough work, I could coach someone on how to do something that I'm not very good at. I could learn how to coach someone else. But I can only coach or mentor in a business if I've been in business. So, I've owned businesses, I've had teams, I've got a few grey hairs, so I've been around for a while, and that's why I say I know most of the answers. I've experienced most of them. I've coached businesses of all kinds of sizes, but I've also got a great network of other experts. So the two pieces is make sure your coach knows what they're talking about, that they're not newly minted such that their shingle still has wet paint on it, and secondly, really dig into, are they operating from a theoretical perspective, or are they really experienced? And then there's three. The third one is just make sure you click, make sure you connect, that you feel like you speak the same language, you have the same approach. Those three things are really important.
Yeah, I think it kind of reminds me of this as well, of like you said, suit as an example, but like therapists, like all therapists aren't the same for people, and you've got to have that connection and click essentially. And
I've talked to people who said, I went to a psychologist once once or twice and I didn't get along with them. I'm like, yeah? Did you then go and try another one? Oh, no, it didn't work. What? You were with the wrong person. No. It's not the psychology that was the problem. It was the psychologist.
Yeah.
And it's and in all seriousness, it's the same with property investors. People come to you, they need to click with your way of being, your
for sure. It's a long-term thing, absolutely.
You're going to be partners.
Yeah.
And some people are going to go, I love these guys. And others are going to go, maybe not my thing. And you want to work with the ones who love you, because then that's going to create great experiences for you and them.
Absolutely, for sure.
Same with coaches. Make sure you find one you love and that you're happy to have their phone call, not, oh God, I've got to do that again.
Yeah, that's very true.
So as if you listen to the previous two, episode 61, you'll know, I'm very happy for any of the listeners to reach out to me, send me an email, helen@helenmac.com, and I'm really happy to have that introductory conversation, no strings attached, just to find out where you are, what your gap is, And I guarantee that in that short conversation of half an hour, 45 minutes or so, you'll get at least one idea that you can implement regardless of what you choose to do next.
Yeah.
Helen@helenmac.com.
Amazing. Well, Helen, thank you so much for your time and wisdom as always. And listeners, just like last time, if you want to book yourself in with Helen, you can also head to investorintelligence.com.au/business coach. And so you can find that in our show notes for that very, very generous deal. But Helen, thank you so much for your time today.
It's been lovely to chat, Phoebe. Thanks very much.
If you found this episode or any of our episodes helpful, please make sure to share and leave a rating to help us reach more people on their investing journeys. And of course, subscribe to be notified when new episodes drop. Make sure to follow the podcast on Instagram @Investor Intelligence Podcast. You can find links to our other socials in the show notes, including a link to the Property Mentors weekly blog. If you're ready to get your property portfolio in shape for financial freedom, check out Luke's latest book, Property Fit. You can get yourself a copy at www.propertyfitbook.com.au.